Hi guys, welcome to the Dark Tales, two scary stories to keep you up at night. While attending college in what I believe to be a secure southern town with a population of about 30,000, I was fortunate enough to have a small house to myself due to family property in the suburban area. The house, although tiny, was situated on a 2-acre fenced-in lot with numerous pine trees and shrubbery. One sunny night, my friends and I went to a few parties before returning to their place to hang out. Eventually, they dropped me back home around 1 a.m. normally. My two dogs slept in my room, but that night they were restless, so I moved them to the living room and closed my bedroom door to avoid further disturbances. Soon after falling asleep, I woke up to a horrifying sight, a man climbing through my bedroom window, which I had never intentionally left unlocked. As a 5 feet 11 girl, the window was almost out of my reach from the ground, and its size made me believe no one would break in through it. Nevertheless, the intruder had a knife to my throat and his hand over my mouth, silencing any attempt to scream. Feeling intense rage and fear, I quickly realized I didn't know this man. He had hollow cheeks and looked older, possibly in his 30 seconds. Strangely, he remained calm and even told me that he wouldn't harm me if I didn't scream. I offered him my possessions, money and car, but he claimed that wasn't his motive. During this terrifying ordeal, he kept me down, talking calmly as I tried to understand how he knew I was there, and he said it was a lucky guess. The situation grew worse when my dogs in the living room started making noise, making the intruder uneasy. He became more aggressive, touching me inappropriately and instructing me to lie down. In a brief moment of release, I managed to push him away and jumped out of my window. The fall was onto a metal lawn chair he had dragged into my yard, causing additional injuries to my bruised and scraped body. Desperate for help, I ran to my neighbor's house and frantically explained the terrifying encounter. He quickly took action, grabbing protective gear and heading to my house while his wife provided me with clothes and assistance. The state trooper arrived shortly after, but despite their efforts, the police couldn't identify the intruder. Years later, a man was arrested for a different unsolved rape murder case in the vicinity, but he wasn't charged with anything related to the 2005 murder near my place, despite his red hair and left-handedness. The police believe that the intruder must have been observing me for some time, as he seemed to know my living situation well. It was a harrowing experience, and even though some answers were never found, the support of the police and community helped me cope with the trauma. Let's get into the second story. When I was young, my brother shared a story with me about his time living with our grandparents. He lived next door to an elderly couple in their 60s, and one winter, the wife named Margie went missing. The husband asked my grandparents if they had seen her, but unfortunately they hadn't, and nobody else had either. A few days later, my dad was playing football with friends at the park when it started to snow. They played in the snow for a while before heading back home separately. When my dad returned home, he realized that his parents were not there. He started a fire in the fireplace and went to his room, which was beside the living room, to place his things on his bed before taking a warm shower. As he got out of the shower, he heard a humming sound coming from the living room. He called out to his mom, but the humming stopped, and he heard a creaking sound instead. Worried, he quickly got dressed and went out to the living room in a towel. There, in my grandpa's old rocking sofa chair, was Margie, the neighbor from next door. She looked at my dad and said she was so cold and needed to get warm. In a panic, my dad ran to get the husband, but when they returned to the living room, Margie was gone. They searched the whole house together, calling her name, but she was nowhere to be found. The story was already creepy enough, but the truly scary part happened the next day when Margie's lifeless body was discovered in the man next door's crawl space. It appeared she had tripped and fatally injured her head on a sharp object. The smell of the decomposing body had become unbearable, and that's how he found her. The strange thing was that the body had been dead for at least 3 days, yet my dad saw her in the living room just the day before. To this day, my dad firmly believes that he saw Margie's ghost in the living room that day. He is not someone to make up such stories, and when he first shared this with me when I was 9, needless to say, I had trouble sleeping that night.